Have you ever heard of real ghost stories? Do you believe? Welcome to Silent Specters, where every whisper holds a secret and every shadow hides a story connected to our lives. Now, let's begin today's story. Everyone, please listen carefully and feel it.
Part 2. Echoes on Archer Avenue. The Unsettled Spirit. The initial wave of Resurrection Mary sightings, peaking from the late 1930s through the mid-century, established her as a fixture in Chicago's spectral tapestry. But legends, especially those tied so intrinsically to a specific location, rarely remain static. They evolve, deepen, and sometimes refract, creating variations on the theme, spawning new questions, and attracting those who seek to understand, debunk, or simply experience the inexplicable. Archer Avenue, already a path shadowed by cemeteries and whispers of the past, became a crucible where folklore, human psychology, and perhaps something genuinely otherworldly, continued to interact. The period following the most intense sightings saw the emergence of dedicated chroniclers and investigators, drawn by the sheer persistence and consistency of the accounts. Foremost among them was the late Richard Crowe, a Chicago folklorist and ghost hunter who became almost synonymous with Resurrection Mary. Crowe wasn't just a collector of spooky stories. He approached the legend with a historian's curiosity and an investigator's tenacity. He spent countless hours interviewing witnesses, often years after their encounters, meticulously documenting their experiences. He scoured microfilmed newspapers from the 1920s and 30s, searching for accident reports that matched the legend's narrative. He walked the grounds of Resurrection Cemetery, studying maps, looking for graves that might belong to the real Mary. Crowe's research, and that of others who followed, highlighted the frustrating ambiguity at the heart of the legend. While candidates like Mary Bregovy or Anna Maria Norcus, who died in a 1927 car accident after attending the O. Henry Ballroom, emerged, no single historical figure perfectly matched all the details accumulated over decades of sightings. Records were often incomplete, names misspelled, details confused by the passage of time and the trauma of grief. Was Mary blonde? Did she wear white that night? Was the accident truly a hit and run? The verifiable facts remained stubbornly elusive, forcing investigators to rely heavily on the consistency of the eyewitness testimony itself as the primary form of evidence. What Crowe and others did uncover was a richer, more complex tapestry of phenomena associated with Archer Avenue and Resurrection Cemetery, suggesting that Mary's presence, or the energy surrounding her legend, manifested in ways beyond the classic vanishing hitchhiker scenario. Some accounts deviated significantly from the norm. Drivers reported seeing a woman in white not asking for a ride, but simply standing motionless by the cemetery gates, bathed in an eerie luminescence, before slowly fading from view. Others described seeing her figure walking inside the cemetery grounds long after closing hours, weaving between the headstones like a lost soul searching for her own marker. These sightings lacked the direct interaction of the hitchhiker tales but carried their own distinct chill, the passive, mournful presence of someone seemingly trapped between worlds. Auditory phenomena also became part of the extended legend. People living in homes backing onto Archer Avenue, or those visiting the cemetery during quiet hours, occasionally reported hearing faint strains of ballroom music drifting on the air, particularly near the gates facing the road. It was described as old-fashioned jazz or waltz music, the kind Mary might have danced to at the O. Henry, seeming to emanate from nowhere and fading just as quickly. Others spoke of hearing a woman softly weeping near the supposed site of the accident, a sound that would cease abruptly if they tried to locate its source. There were also reports that felt less like direct sightings and more like residual psychic impressions. Some drivers along the critical stretch of Archer Avenue described sudden, inexplicable drops in temperature inside their cars, even on warm nights, often accompanied by an overwhelming feeling of sadness or despair that would dissipate as soon as they passed Resurrection Cemetery. Others felt an unseen presence in the passenger seat, the distinct sensation of being watched, even when they were completely alone. These subjective experiences, while impossible to verify, added another layer to the avenue's haunted reputation, suggesting Mary's influence extended beyond visual manifestation. One particularly intriguing variation involved not a vanishing passenger, but a passenger who left something behind. A handful of accounts, though less common than the standard vanishing, described drivers finding a small, old-fashioned object on the passenger seat after the mysterious woman disappeared. A single white glove, a lace handkerchief, or even a faint, lingering scent of perfume described as reminiscent of violets or lilies. These ethereal breadcrumbs, if true, served as tantalizing, albeit ephemeral, hints of a tangible interaction. The infamous handprints on the cemetery gates, reported in 1976, remained a focal point of discussion and debate for years. While cemetery officials eventually repaired or replaced that section of fencing, the story became legendary. Skeptics pointed out that iron bars exposed to Chicago's harsh weather could certainly develop rust patterns or discoloration that might be misinterpreted, especially fueled by the power of suggestion after a reported sighting. They noted that welding repairs could leave marks, or that vandalism using chemicals or heat could not be entirely ruled out. The lack of clear photographic evidence from the exact time of the discovery, and the difficulty in forensically analyzing such marks decades later, left the incident shrouded in ambiguity. Yet, for believers, the handprints were powerful, physical evidence, proof that Mary wasn't just a fleeting apparition but possessed the ability, however faint, to interact with the physical world, leaving a desperate imprint on the very barriers separating her from her final rest. The persistence of the Resurrection Mary legend inevitably seeped into the local culture. Archer Avenue became, for many, Mary's Road. Driving it late at night, especially the stretch between the former site of the Willowbrook Ballroom and the cemetery, transformed from a simple commute into a potential encounter with the unknown. It became a macabre rite of passage for generations of teenagers, cruising the avenue slowly, windows down, music off, half daring the ghost to appear. Local bars and restaurants along the route sometimes played up the connection, sharing stories with patrons or displaying newspaper clippings about the legend. Ghost tours capitalized on the fame, bringing busloads of curious visitors to the gates of Resurrection Cemetery, guides dramatically recounting the most famous sightings and pointing towards the infamous, and now repaired, section of the fence where the handprints allegedly appeared. Mary became Chicago's spectral celebrity, her story retold in books, television shows, and countless online forums, often embellished or altered, but always returning to the core elements: the girl, the dress, the dance, the road, the vanishing. This cultural saturation, however, also fueled skepticism. How many sightings, especially in later years, were influenced by drivers already knowing the legend? If you're driving down Archer Avenue late at night, thinking about Resurrection Mary, isn't any unusual shadow or fleeting glimpse of white likely to be interpreted through that lens? Psychologists call this confirmation bias, the tendency to see what you expect to see. A woman in a light-colored coat waiting for a bus, glimpsed briefly in the periphery? A trick of the headlights on fog or swirling snow? A reflection in the window? In the context of Archer Avenue's reputation, these mundane occurrences could easily be magnified into a paranormal encounter in the mind of a primed observer. Furthermore, the area itself lends itself to spooky interpretations. Archer Avenue cuts through patches of dark forest preserve, industrial areas that look desolate at night, and of course, the vast, silent expanses of multiple cemeteries. St. James Sag, Bethania, Fairmount Willow Hills are also nearby, though Resurrection is Mary's traditional haunt. It's a landscape that naturally evokes feelings of isolation and unease after dark, creating fertile ground for ghost stories. Hoaxes, while perhaps not explaining the decades of consistent reports, couldn't be entirely dismissed either. The temptation to stage a prank, especially given the road's notoriety, would be strong for some. A figure darting out, a friend hiding in the back seat who slips out, plausible scenarios, though they don't quite capture the specific details common to many Mary reports, such as the gradual realization the passenger is gone or the distinct cold spots. Despite the rational explanations and the lack of definitive proof, the belief in resurrection Mary persisted, and arguably continues to persist, albeit perhaps more quietly now. Why? What gives this particular ghost story such enduring power? Part of it lies in the archetype. The vanishing hitchhiker is a classic trope found in folklore across the world. It speaks to our anxieties about lonely roads, chance encounters, and the fragility of life. Mary's story, however, has specific elements that make it particularly resonant. Her youth and beauty, the tragic and sudden nature of her death, a hit-and-run adds a layer of injustice and unresolved anger. Her connection to a beloved activity, dancing, and her association with specific, real locations ground the legend in a relatable reality. She isn't just a ghost. She's Mary, the girl who loved to dance at the Willowbrook, the girl tragically killed on Archer Avenue, the girl buried in Resurrection Cemetery. There's also the emotional core. The story taps into deep-seated human themes: loss, grief, unfinished business. The idea of a spirit lingering because of a life cut short, unable to complete her journey home, resonates with our own fears of mortality and the desire for closure. Mary becomes a symbol of unresolved sorrow, forever caught in the loop of her final moments. Her quiet sadness, often reported by witnesses, evokes sympathy rather than just fear. People feel sorry for Mary, even as they are spooked by her. Moreover, the very ambiguity that frustrates investigators might actually fuel the legend's longevity. Because her identity isn't definitively known, because the sightings can't be absolutely proven or disproven, Mary remains a mystery. And mysteries hold a powerful allure. She exists in the space between fact and folklore, between history and hearsay. This allows people to project their own beliefs, fears, and hopes onto her story. The dawn of the 21st century brought new contexts. With the proliferation of cell phones, GPS, and dashcams, one might expect sightings to either be definitively captured or easily debunked. Yet clear, verifiable footage of Resurrection Mary remains as elusive as ever. Some argue this proves she's not real. In an age where everything is recorded, where's the evidence? Others suggest that perhaps spectral entities don't register on digital devices in the same way, or that the conditions for her appearance are specific and rare, eluding casual capture. Maybe the nature of the sightings is changing, becoming more fleeting, more atmospheric, less about direct interaction and more about subtle feelings or sounds. The tragic fire that destroyed the Willowbrook Ballroom in 2016 was a blow to the legend's physical anchors. The place where Mary supposedly spent her last happy hours, the source of the spectral music some claimed to hear, was gone. For many, it felt like the end of an era, severing a tangible link to the ghost's origins. Would Mary fade now that her beloved ballroom was reduced to ashes? Yet, Archer Avenue remains. Resurrection Cemetery still stands, its gates silently guarding legions of the dead, including, perhaps, the restless spirit of a young woman in white. The forest preserves still whisper secrets in the wind. And the stories continue, albeit perhaps less frequently reported in mainstream channels, often shared now in online forums, paranormal investigation groups, or as anecdotes passed down within families who live nearby. A trucker driving late at night might still report a flicker of white near the cemetery entrance, disappearing too quickly to be sure of what he saw. A couple returning from a late movie might feel a sudden, inexplicable chill pass through their car as they drive down Archer. A visitor laying flowers on a relative's grave in resurrection might hear a faint, solitary sob that seems to come from nowhere. The ending, continued, the search for the real, resurrection Mary, the definitive proof of her existence, may never yield a conclusive answer. The lines between folklore, misidentification, psychological phenomena, and genuine paranormal activity remain blurred along the shadowed path of Archer Avenue. Perhaps the truth lies not in finding a single explanation, but in acknowledging the complex interplay of all these factors, woven together over nearly a century. What is undeniable is the power of her story. Resurrection Mary has transcended mere campfire tale to become an embedded part of Chicago's identity, a spectral landmark as recognizable to some as the Willis Tower or Navy Pier. She represents the persistence of memory, the echo of tragedy, and the enduring human fascination with the veil between life and death. The girl in the white dress may or may not still walk Archer Avenue. She may or may not still grip the bars of the cemetery gate, or accept rides from unsuspecting strangers. But her legend certainly does. It lingers in the chill air blowing off the nearby canal, in the long shadows cast by the headstones in Resurrection Cemetery, and in the minds of those who drive that lonely stretch of road after midnight. The music may have faded from the Willowbrook, the handprints may have been erased from the gate, but the echo of Mary's story, the whisper of her presence, remains. Archer Avenue continues its journey, and on its shoulders, Resurrection Mary continues hers, an unsettled spirit forever bound to the road, forever dancing just beyond the reach of proof, her ending still unwritten, her presence a perpetual question mark hanging in the Chicago night.
Did you learn any lessons from this story? If so, please leave your feedback in the comments below. Thank you, and we hope to see you in the admin's future videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. We sincerely thank you and look forward to seeing you again.